Hi, Foster. Um, I hope things are going well and that you've had a good start to the year. I'm sure there's just a lot. You're under a flood like I have been in my new job. I hope Math Lab has been going well. It sounds like you were doing okay. And if you're like Jed, he said that he's been so busy, he hasn't had time to watch all the videos I made for him. So I'm going to make a brief video for you now. And then I'll kind of let you be in the driver's seat to let me know if and when you need any more information from me, either with a short meeting or me to record another one of these videos. So I'll try to keep this pretty brief, but I'm going back to the notes that we went over this summer, and I'll kind of pick things up from there and talk through a few things, and then I'll go over to Asana as well. So I'm down here, the later meeting Foster section. I'll talk about Math Lab comments. I've been kind of watching those a little bit just to see if anything came up here at the beginning of the year. Sounds like you're tracking with those and dealing with them as they come up, and I hope that you use the managers as resources if anything comes up that you don't know how to handle, but feel free to reach out to me as well. So maybe I'll start with this piece down here. Basically, I'm going to stop watching the comments now, but feel free at any time if there's anything that comes up that I might have some context and can help you with. For example, Tutor Labs, there's some things that have been coming up with that. I'll deal with that separately with Jed and kind of CC you on some of those things. But that's an example of an area where I have a lot of history. And so some of the comments may help you to just have context and to be able to move forward a little bit more quickly. So feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that comes up in the tutor comments that you have questions about. Otherwise, I'm going to stop watching those. Maybe you've dealt with the most recent comments that came up. This was the only one so far. I've deleted all the other comments, and I think I've interacted with you on any that had some unusual things in them. But just from this last Thursday's BizCalc, Pre-Calc, Calc 1, etc. session, there was this comment from Emily Deller. She said, Cryoni is a pre-calc student, and he was wondering about individual tutoring. I usually respond to something like that because we want to give the right messaging about tutoring. So I don't know if Emily wrote that. That's another thing that you could, when you have your lead tutor meeting, ask the leads to make sure that they're signing their comments, because that's helpful to you. So if they just put a dash at the end like Emily, or some tutors are better at this than others. So I've seen some leads who will put in parentheses like so-and-so said this, and then a new comment, and so-and-so said that, because that's really what they should be doing. They should be kind of getting everybody together at the end, seeing were there any comments or issues that came up, and then putting those into the comments. So you might reiterate that with the leads and get them to sign their comments. So going back to this particular comment, if Emily truly was the person who had this comment, she's kind of a senior tutor, so I'm surprised she would have that comment. Although maybe she just wanted to note that. But I always start with the lead tutor, even if I don't know who wrote the comment. Basically, hopefully she gave the right messaging to that student. We tell them to keep coming to Math Lab and try that out, because the Ask Office will ask if students have used Math Lab before they even think about using an individual tutor. So their comments this early in the semester should be, well, keep trying Math Lab, see if this will be enough to help you, and put it into your schedule and come regularly. But they can also tell those students to go to the Ask Office and make an appointment with the Ask counselors. And the other messaging is to make sure that tutors never guarantee an individual tutor, because they should note that there's a process for this where they'll consult the prof, talk to an Ask counselor, and check Math Lab attendance for that. So that's the first comment. Second one, Abby doesn't have a way to get the Calc 1 textbook online. Maybe you've already taken care of this. I just looked quickly since it's coming up again on Sunday for her to use the textbook, again, I see that she does have access to the online course folder. And in that, there's a folder for the textbook, so she has access to that README as well. So maybe Anna added that later, maybe Abby doesn't know about it, but somehow, hopefully somebody cleared that up so that she can be looking at the textbook online. So that'll kind of wrap up my last advice to you, unless you ever want any. So again, I'm going to stop reading those comments and might turn them off as well for coming to my email. So please do speak up if you ever need some more advice on any of those comments. So I'll say this is all done. Next, we're going to go into Asana, but I wanted to kind of give an overview of what I'm going to cover in Asana. And I'm going to go through this part, and then I think I'm going to stop with Asana as well. But once again, this is just like MathLab comments. If there's something in Asana that you have questions about, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'd be happy to do another video or talk with you about anything, or just email you answers to questions. So there's a section in there called MathLab September, February tasks that I'm going to work through with you. And I thought I'd just talk through kind of the overview of the sections in that particular Asana project. And then we'll go into Asana and I'll briefly touch on maybe some of the tasks there. Recruiting will kind of be the next big thing that happens. I did talk a little bit about this summer. Jed will kind of kick off the recruiting since he works with the TAs. And with that process that he starts, he will also get recommendations from profs for tutors. I believe I talked through things above about recruiting, about the tutor interview process and things like that. If there's, so up here, if there's anything that doesn't make sense about all of this up above, please don't hesitate again to ask. That is kind of a big season, and a big thing that you have to do is recruiting the tutors for the next semester. So again, for recruiting, for anything else you see in Asana, for anything else that comes up, please don't hesitate to ask me about it. Even if it's just some other random issue that comes up. Sometimes I've seen that within the last many years that I've worked with MathLab. So again, I'm going to kind of put the ball on your court. That doesn't mean I don't care. So feel free to reach out at any point, but this is the last one that I'm going to give to you. But I'm happy to add more later. Okay, so I will talk through then what happens in September and February. And some of this sometimes dribbles into October and March. And so I'll talk about kind of these main areas. So the first area is just ask lists. It's kind of a final cleanup. Looked like Naomi had done one of those tasks in that section, which was cleaning up our own lists. But then Vicky also maintains a list, and so it's good for her to have the correct information as well. I didn't see that one covered, so we'll talk about that when we get in there. After session meetings, this is related to some training that we usually do. I think I mentioned to you that we used to do monthly tutor training all through the year, starting with the first training that you do right at the beginning of the semester. Then we usually did one in September and in February, so one in the first month. And that's the one that I'm calling these after session meetings. We found that the best way to get attendance to those meetings is to hold them immediately after their MathLab session. So if tutors are in more than one session, we just have them pick their earliest in the week session. So if they work Sunday, Tuesday, they go to Sunday's session. And just go to the 15 minutes after everybody packs down the session. They all gather up, and the lead tutors will lead these sessions for all of the tutors that come to that night. I usually rely on the lead tutors to help me establish the agendas for these meetings. They're really short meetings. They're about 15 minutes long. And you'll see in Asana, there's a link to a folder. You can look at past trainings that have been done. But usually it's kind of dealing with two different areas. The first one is just dealing with individual issues with sessions that have come up or that the managers have noticed. So I asked two groups. The managers I'll ask because sometimes they see, for example, they might see that answer keys aren't put back appropriately, or people are leaving something a mess, or they're noticing something's not happening. So they will sometimes have recommendations for things that need to be highlighted with all tutors. And lead tutors, we talk through that as well to find out if they have some things that they've been seeing, like maybe one semester tutors aren't coming on time, or tutors are bringing food to session. They're not supposed to bring food to sessions, or students are on their cell phones, or students are working on homework and not paying attention to students in the room, or whatever the issue is. This is just a nice way to address that as a group. That way it doesn't single out a single person. It just gets people to be more professional with their tutoring. So that's just any kinds of issues that are coming up is that number one category. And then the number two category is a training topic. And here, it depends on the semester. Sometimes lately we've been so crazy, we haven't spent a lot of time on tutor training. In the past, we spent a lot of time on tutor training and would talk about, for example, how do you work with groups? Or how do you work with a student who is sucking all the time out of you? Or how do you work with a student and get to pull information out of them? So asking a lot of questions. What are good questions to ask? How can you work with multiple learning styles? All different kinds of tutor training topics. You can just pick one of these, and the lead tutors will sometimes have something that's come up. For example, in the last year, we had a problem come up where we had a single student that was hard to work with, and how to work with that type of student, and how to leave a student and things like that. So you can look back in the past notes and see some of the issues that we've addressed, but lead tutors are good ones to give you a pulse on what's going on. And if they don't have ideas, how to work with groups, how to work well with working with virtual and in person. There's all different kinds of things that you may come up with that you could talk about as well. There's endless ideas there, and you can look back. There's probably not a great cataloging of these meetings over the COVID years, because we were just trying to exist and learn how to tutor online and things like that. But you could go back even a little bit further to find some of the other topics and notes that we've used, and also look through the last year. So again, those are lead tutor led short meetings. Lead tutors will sometimes say they don't need notes. They usually do, and tutors do appreciate having some little kind of half sheet handout that just lists some of the announcements. That's another good moment to talk about when there's, I should have put that on here. Also when there's breaks coming up, so fall break, what the protocols are going to be for when tutors should be working. If sub procedures are not being handled, that they talk about that as well. So any other kind of global announcements that you want to give to tutors, it's good to list those on a little half sheet. And the managers can do all of the printing of those and sending notes out to leads and things like that, and even reminders to tutors. Okay, Math Lab and CS Lab class announcements is the other category of tasks we're going to see in Asana. And I think I even told you that in the past, way long ago, I would go in the first day of class and hand out Math Lab brochures and tell people come to Math Lab. That was not successful, just because everybody's getting a rush of material at the beginning of the year and they kind of ignore it, put it aside and forget about it. So we found that the moment when people are most receptive to hearing about Math Lab is later on. So we do hand out the bookmarks early on. Hopefully that happened for students. And we also have those course online handouts that are really good. So maybe you're only doing course handouts right now. I think the bookmarks are actually gone. So strike that I said bookmarks, the handouts, the colorful ones that they hand out, and that's also linked from the schedule electronically. So those they got early on, so they do have the information, but many students ignore that at the beginning of the semester, and they're more receptive to it after they've had the first exam and they see, oh, things aren't going as well as I thought. I do have to buckle down and study. We've done all different kinds of formats for those announcements. They have been tutor led. Sometimes we've had a tutor just come in and show a video. So if you look back into the archives, you'll see some old videos that are also on YouTube that we used to have tutors show. We've kind of gotten away from that lately, although that's something that you could create again. We had found that when tutors just went in without any guidance, they didn't do very well. Profs hated those announcements. So you do need to give them some guidance and encouragement to be enthusiastic and kind of give them some things that they need to talk about. So that's what we've been doing lately. We've given them some guidance of what is the kind of laundry list of things that they should talk about. We do solicit from the profs when they would like those tutors to come into their classes. It's usually before the class starts for the first 5 minutes to get profs to respond to that. What I've found best, I think I told you this with relationship to anything that you need from profs, it's easiest if you just ask Nathan if you can use some of the department meeting time, and he's usually happy to put that towards the beginning of the meeting. Put the link there, they can click on it. You can explain while you're talking that they should fill in what date would work best for them for those tutor announcements. Those are good. They will help all students to know that this resource exists and just be one more way that they can recognize that. And it's good for them to see a tutor, and we try to use tutors from their class because then they can see that tutor and know that they'll see them in Math Lab as well. We do that for Math Lab and CS Lab, and I've usually run that for both Math Lab and CS Lab. So I've set it all up and did that all with the managers helping me out with that. Next thing listed here is October training. This is an additional training that we've done. So we've usually lately just been doing beginning of the year, beginning of the semester trainings, both at the beginning of September and beginning of February or August or January, late January. So the startup meeting that you've already done, the new tutor training that you've already done, I assume, and then this mid September or February meeting that I would suggest doing those after meetings. And then we've been doing this October training, which is a senior videos training. That doesn't mean you can't do more training. Again, back in the olden days, I did one every single month. So September, October, November, those 3 months for sure. Usually December was too busy, so we didn't do one. And then February, March, April, we used to do training meetings for every month. But you can see if you want to add more additional training meetings back in. But I would really suggest you do this October training. We do something every spring. We do some senior videos. I may have mentioned this to you. Sam Mulberry in the Ask Office is really talented with creating videos. He is also very kind to do a lot of this work for the senior videos. He videotapes our senior tutors in the spring, right before the end of the year. And we have a whole process in Asana for that. And Anna Tollefson knows how that all runs and can pretty much run that process with you and do a lot of the work herself. But then Sam goes ahead and creates videos for Math Lab in general, for CS Lab general, and then some specific course videos as well. Ruth Livingston has put those up on our YouTube channel, and she can help you locate where those exist. But these are just nice videos for tutors to hear from other experienced tutors. And they usually enjoy those videos, and they're just useful for them to enrich their tutoring experience. So I'll show you what I've done with those when we get into Asana as well. Last thing is pizza party. This is something I did for many, many years, probably the whole time Math Lab existed up until COVID hit. So I'll just let you know that that was a tradition. And if things ever change, that'd be a fun tradition to reinstitute. This was something that I held every February. I think long ago I did it in the fall, so you could do it then as well. I just found people enjoyed a getaway in February. So I invited anybody who had been a tutor the whole year from Math Lab or CS Lab to my house, and we always made pizzas that were in the shape of math or CS symbols or concept or something, so they'd get a pair and do that. So if you ever want to reinstitute that, there's lots of information there with how you could run a Math Lab, CS Lab pizza party as well. Okay, so let's go into Asana, the Math Lab September, February tasks. Oh, here's the dock cameras. So there's more information. I don't know if Abby Lone, for example, is using that Elmo or not, or what happened with that. But if you want to try that, there's some more information for who in the department is using an Elmo, if anybody. Those are in the Happy Lab, way up on the shelf to the right as you come in past the cabinet, and then the Elmo software that would need to be installed. Okay, cleanup ask list. This is the one where I said Naomi, it looks like has already done the one for our lists, but it looks like she hasn't done the one with Vicky. So she knows what that is. Hopefully she will be passing these tasks on to Caitlin. So remind her to start assigning these tasks to Caitlin, and hopefully she's training her in on those as well. This is the whole section about the after tutor session lead tutor training meeting. That just means that the lead tutors are leading those meetings. So this section talks about all that. You can read through. This kind of outlines what those meetings usually entail. So I hope that you've been able to set up a schedule with lead tutors and are meeting kind of regularly with them to get a pulse on how things are going. This was usually one of the topics that we had early on, is those tutor training meetings. So you can look back at our agendas with how we talked about soliciting ideas for these after session meetings. Then we made notes, and again, sometimes they don't think they need them, but I think it's good if they do, so you can go back here and look at some past notes, and managers can look through them, see if they have anything else to add, and they can make the copies and put them in Math Lab for people to use. I always tell Vicky, if we ever have these after meetings or any type of meeting, Vicky's amazing in the Ask office, Vicky Sanford. She, I don't know how she does this, but she knows when tutors put something on their timesheet that's not in the session when they're supposed to be tutoring. So I always just give her a heads up, hey, Vicky, we're going to be doing these 15-minute after session meetings, so she knows that those are legitimate times that they can all be paid for. There's just a task for the manager to copy the notes and a manager to email the tutors about the meetings, and also to email the leads about the meetings, especially if they have any training topics, because sometimes we might give a scaled down version of the meeting notes to the tutors, but we give a little bit more beefy set of notes for the lead tutors, if they're, especially if they're doing a training topic, they may have more bullet points that give them more talking points. I should have said also, for these after session meetings, they're just really good to do in September and February, because one of the things that you should also have, and I should have put that on the laundry list of topics, is just how is this session going? It's just good for them to talk about, how is this session going? Do you feel like we're serving students well? Are there any issues? Because a Sunday night session might be different than a Tuesday night session. So just for them to talk a minute about, does anybody have any questions? Is everybody being able to access answer keys they need? Is anybody noticing any problems or issues? Does anybody need help? Things like that are good for them to address as well. And so that's another reason why we do the sessions after the meetings, not only because it's convenient for the tutors and gives the lead tutor some empowerment, but also because they can talk about anything specific that's going on within that session. And again, the managers can help you, especially Anna and Ruth and Naomi can talk about how those go. Class announcements. This is the class announcements section. So the first thing you would need to do is determine the dates for the announcements. And we have usually found that either right before fall break or right when you get back from fall break is a good moment to do those announcements, kind of gives students a fresh start. So kind of doing it around that time is kind of nice. Like the Monday and Wednesday before fall break is usually a really good moment to do those. So figure out the dates that you're going to do that. Have the math lab manager make a schedule for those. These were the old PowerPoints that we used. Right now, instead, we've been just giving tutors a list of topics to do, but if you want to, someday you could go back to using a PowerPoint or a video instead of them just doing the talking points. This one I said you could email the profs, and again I highlighted that usually just doing this within a meeting has been better since everybody's so busy. Then the managers can help you with this. We have a tutor survey where we try to get tutors to sign up for all the times that they're available. Then when those responses come in, one of the managers usually does a first draft at making the list of which tutor is going to go into which class. And again, we try to use tutors that work with the class so that they can have that recognition with the class as well. After the manager makes it, they would email you. You kind of look it over and make sure that it does look good. There's sometimes some back and forth with that, but once it's done, then you would email to the profs to let them know that that schedule is sent. That's this one. Send the email to the profs with the announcement. Then email Vicki about this as well, just so she knows that tutors are going to be paid to go in to do these announcements. And then a manager usually sends reminders to the tutors that agreed to do those announcements. Prepare any materials. Sometimes we've made extra course sheets so that students can receive another one of those if they lost them. Sometimes we just direct them to the electronic course folder or course handouts. So if you have anything paper, I usually put that in a folder outside of my door so that tutors could pick those up before they went to the announcements. We also usually print it out, a paper announcement. We've sometimes done that electronically too, so you can check with Anna. Basically, we just want to know when they've done it. So they either need to initial an electronic form of that schedule or a paper form of the schedule. That's only useful if they're coming to your office to get paper materials. But one way or the other, try to track if students actually did the announcements. And I usually follow up on that because sometimes they do forget it. Then you got to ask the prof, is it okay if they come in some other time, and have those two set that up. So reminders from the manager, check that they're all complete. And if any updates need to be made, do that as well. October training. This is to see the section, and this just links over to that senior videos section. So that senior videos section is here. This is the whole process that will be done in April and May to make the senior videos. And there's a whole bunch of stuff there that Anna can help you with when you get to May. But this is down here, the different ways that you could use senior videos. And this is the section that I'm referring to for October. So the two ways that we've used senior videos is either that they just do this training on their own, or that we do an after session meeting where they watch the videos together. We've kind of shied away from doing this and found that this first way works better. And so this is an example of an email that we've sent to tutors that just gives them some of the latest announcements that we have. So here's some announcements, but then they're given directions to actually watch senior video senior reflections video. And then they're supposed to record some thoughts on that. This is the way that you get them to actually do it. We put all their names down here and then they're supposed to fill it in. You can see some people still didn't do it. And different semesters I've gotten on people's cases, but I didn't this last fall. This is just good. You get most of them to look at those videos, and it's interesting to see the comments that they put down there as well. So the other thing you can do with these emails is put down some of the things that are coming up. Okay, senior videos. So back over to the Math Lab September, February tasks. The last thing here is just the pizza party. So if you ever want to do that again, I've left notes here just to make it easier on myself when I did it. So you could look through those if you ever decide to do something like that. But it was a way to build camaraderie, and it was just a lot of fun. Students used to, like, every single tutor would come to those parties. That was a big thing. Less people would come in latter days. Students are just so busy. I'd make sure it was a date that the managers could come, and they helped me set up the date. And then we would advertise it quite a bit to try to get the tutors to come, and those who came really enjoyed it. So you may think of other ways to build collegiality and camaraderie, but that was just one that I used to use. So I think that covers everything that I wanted to do with you as far as training goes, to get you going to start the year, to talk about recruiting, which is a big piece, and then to talk about these September, October kind of training times. So that will end it for me. But again, feel free to reach out at any time, even if you just want to have a meeting with me to just talk about how things are going, and ask any questions. I'm happy to do that, or shoot me an email if you have some issue that comes up that you'd like any advice on. So thank you so much for taking over Math Lab. I hope you're doing okay and that the year is going well, and you're enjoying your students and having a good semester. It will get better as everything's not new later on. So hang in there too. I'm sure it's very busy, but I hope that the Lord will bless and multiply your time and give you strength for this very busy semester. So thank you so much. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you need anything else. Take care. Bye.